Yeah, so basically, the Miller property, that's their flagship, and it's sitting to the south of Kirkland Lake. And one of the things that makes it interesting, more so than, other properties, is that it's got a lot in common with Kirkland Lake, like a lot more than any other property anywhere else. It's got the same age rocks, same type of rocks, same everything. But the one thing is, with the gold, you get tellurides, these gold tellurides. And the tellurides it's pretty rare around the world to have them with the gold. But, Kirkland Lake has it through all their mines. The 7 big mines made up 24 million ounces there. And the one type of telluride is calaverite. That's the new South Zone that Kirkland Lake Gold's mining almost totally now. It's almost 100% of their ore comes from there. Well, that's loaded with this calaverite, the telluride. Well, that's what Miller has. Miller has this same tellurides with the gold. And the only other place in the neighborhood is out here in town Swastika, just west of Kirkland Lake. And you can see these black lines, big, thick black lines. Well, those are the structures. Those are the conduits that the gold's flowed along. And so it's not too much of a surprise, I guess, that, Miller's got the same mineralization, because the main structure, this Catherine Fault here, comes up and joins up with the Larder Lake Break. And, that's, the main structure in Kirkland Lake. So all of these 3 areas have got the same mineralization out of those conduits. Now, I just threw this in, but it shows you that around the world, there's some famous gold camps, like in Australia, Kalgoorlie. It's like a 1 million ounce producer every year. Cripple Creek is another world famous. So it's Kirkland Lake, Cripple Creek, Kalgoorlie. There's only a handful around the world that have this. And here's the mines in Kirkland Lake. There's Golden Gate's the one in Swastika, just west of Kirkland Lake. And here's your Miller Independence mine. So this is, you can look this up on the internet. So it is important. Just to show you that the fluids are really, really similar, if not totally the same as what's in Kirkland Lake. Now, this is a close-up map of our property, and basically the other thing that we compare ourselves to, the other property, and if I go back here, you'll see it. I don't know, there might be a delay when I'm doing this, but the Sigma Lamaque in Quebec, we compare ourselves to that, and there's a reason. I'll show you that in a second here. But basically, you've got these intrusives in orange here, and they've punched up, and they're loaded with veins. They're most of the ore that Oban before Northstar, the last big drill program was it was Oban, which is a Cisco, eh? So they did a big drill program. You can see where they drilled. They drilled in this 2015. They drilled this intrusive, this intrusive, and this intrusive. What they were looking for is another Canadian Malartic. So now what happened was, of course, they got this really good property in Quebec, Windfall Lake, and they just dropped all their properties elsewhere, including this one. Now this was a great property. I mean, it's had, besides Oban, over the years, there was Tech Corporation and Goldfields and Queenston. So a lot of big companies were attracted to this property. Now, the other thing you can get off this map here is you can see the faults. So there's your main one, Catherine Fault. But there's a whole bunch of parallel ones. And normally, when you're looking for gold, the 2 things you want are intrusives and structure. Well, we got them both, right? On top of all that, there is a historical resource, 270,000 ounces at 11.5 grams gold. So again, the grade is king, and this is high grade. And now this is historical. It's, we're going to have to, you can't go by this for now, but it's something to, start with, sort of thing, And then there's also an historical resource up here on the planet, 3 to 5 million ounces, sort of thing, a million ton. 100,000, 500,000 ounces, sort of thing. But again, that's an old resource and it's historical in nature, and you can't, we don't rely on it. But I mean, it's it's an indication, right? Now, and then I was telling you about these intrusions, the orange ones, but there are other ones, these purple guys, different rock type. Now, if I go to, well, first I'll show you a couple slides. This is one of those intrusions, the Allied cyanide. This is what Cisco was drilling. Now, besides the mineralization in that, we have mineralization outside of these intrusions. And this orange, this gold-colored vein here, the #1 vein zone, you can see it here in the pictures. It's a fairly flat-lying vein, pretty massive quartz. This is a surface trench that was undertaken by Northstar, and you know, a good grade. Now, I got another picture here just showing it, you know, it's called the Golden Sidewalk here, because this vein, it's one of the few places around Kirkland Lake you can just drive right up to with your truck, get out of your truck, walk 100 feet, and you can pick up visible gold right on surface. So, I mean, you can see what the area looks like. It's just bush country. It's really good access. You can't ask for anything better. You got, you know, roads, everything there. Now, we're comparing ourselves to in the Integra company's property. Now, they got taken over by Eldorado a few years ago for, I think it was 550 million. They had the exact same thing that we've got. They've got a bunch of these intrusions sticking up. They're in different colors because there's different types of intrusions. There's diorite and tonalite and whatever, but similar to what we've got. And they've got a major structure coming through. So if I turn that sideways in the same orientation as our property, you can see the intrusions we've got that are full of gold. Include, you know, we haven't tested this purple guy yet. Well, they got the same thing. They got a major structure. We've got a major structure. They've got a multiple plugs. We've got multiple plugs. They're all about the same size as ones we've got. And their property, the Lamac and Sigma mines, which is part of this property, you know, produce like 10 million ounces of gold. So it gives you the idea. And by the way, Integra got taken out, like I say, for the upside. You know, I mean, Eldorado didn't buy them out just because they've got one or two little veins. They've got multiple veins. So we're showing as a comparison these guys because, like I say, they've got the same size plugs. These are these intrusions coming up. They're like sausages. We've got the same thing. This is us here. It's a section view. Surface is up on the top. Just one of these on their property, 3.7 million ounces came out of. So what they started out with, Integra, was a bunch of flat veins. That's what we've got. Then they drilled and they found these subvertical veins, steeper veins. Well, we just put out a press release, and this was an old slide here, 14 grams over 3 meters. Well, that's now what we think is a vertical structure. So we think we're basically where they were, but 5 years ago, sort of thing. Now this is sort of a better view of what they had. They had these gray veins, flat. That was Integra. Soon as they found these steeper veins, these are the colored ones here. That's when they got taken out by Eldorado, because it's easier and cheaper to mine steeper veins than it is to mine flat veins. There's nothing wrong with flat veins. You can mine them as well. But and here's an example of flat veins. This is Valentine Lake, Marathon Gold. Again, in an intrusion, stacked veins. They're flat lying, but this is 4 million ounces, so nothing to sneeze at. So, you know, these intrusions are important. And, you know, we've got similar sort of stacking. So this is a section view of what we've got. You can see one vein. The colors here are the assays. So the purple are the real high grades, and reds are the second highest. And you can see we've got one vein coming through here. You got a bunch of other flat veins here. So I just kind of stippled them in on this slide here. And you got above this #1 vein. This is the #1 vein that you saw pictures of up here, where there's you could see it going down into the ground up here. It's a massive vein. Well, when it hits the intrusion, which is down here, it opens up into a much wider vein system. And we just put out some really nice numbers from in this area. But, you know, we found veining all the way along this in the volcanic rocks surrounding the intrusions. And, you know, we've got veins below this number one vein, and we got veins above it. So above it, here's a slide just showing some wireframes of some of these veins above it in the intrusions. They're stacked very similar to what Integra had before El Dorado bottomed out, and it's also very similar to what Valentine Lake, Marathon Gold has. I think what I'll do here, just right about, I'm gonna go to a 3D just to give you guys a better view of what I'm talking about here. So this is a plan view. You're looking down on our mineralization. Here's the one intrusion off here, up here to the north. Here's another one here, and here's the third one here. This is a gabbro. It's a different rock type, but it's another intrusion that needs to be drilled. This is the number one vein. It's a flat vein. So if you rotate this sideways, then you can see how this flat vein moves into the intrusion. The intrusion's this here, and there's another one here going north-south. I'm going to turn off some of these other ones just so it's easier to see. Let's sec here. Porphyry, turn that one off, and then I'll turn off some of these other ones. Basically, just leave you with the one here. That's the main one. And I'll turn off the gabbro. So there you go. This is what Oban was interested in. They drilled a lot of holes into it. Well, not a lot, but a few, they drilled some, and they were all vertical holes what they were drilling. And you can see most of the holes on the property are vertical. Here's the number one vein. It's flat coming down through here. And you can see when you zoom in here, the assays, I'll turn off the vein itself. You can see the assays in purple here, how they line up. So it comes up to surface up here. And there's nice assays. There's, well, we just got one of our drill holes this year. We've got, 18 grams over 3.9 meters. So, there's some real high grades. And, like I say, that's what the Kirk Lake camp is known for. I'll go back to the slideshow here. I don't know if there's a delay when I go and flip from one thing to another, but here's this number one vein. And this is a grade times thickness. So what it's showing you is where all the the high grades are. So grade times thickness here's up to 330 here gram meters. So you can see there's these plunges to the zones. It comes up to surface up here and up here, but you've got plunges coming along here. So if you drill along these plunges, virtually every hole is going to hit. These are the deeper holes where the intrusion is. The purple's where the intrusion is here. So, like for instance, this is outside the intrusion to the west. We just got a new hit out here that's outside the intrusion to the east. So, it's shaping up quite nicely. And, the scale here, this is about 800 meters. Well, you can see it down here. It's 300 meters, but we've identified about 800 meters along strike for that number one vein. Now, this slide here is showing some of the grades that we've got. So this is the hole that we just put out in a press release from our drilling this year, 18 grams over 3.9 meters on that number one vein. But, there's prior high-grade intersections all along at 86 over half a meter, 11.6 over 4 meters. The other intrusions, well, this vein comes down into this one. We call it the allied. The allied cyanite, and you can see the grades in there. 14 grams over 3 meters, 40 over 1. There's some real wide intersections. This is what the Cisco was after. This is why they were thinking Canadian Malartic and that kind of thing. A gram over 97 meters, So 104 meters intersection, a gram. So this, it's whether you're looking at narrow vein mining or or bulk tonnage, open pit mining. This property has both, right? So now also, and by the way, this is one of our holes into this allied signage. This is where this number one vein blossoms out into a wider zone, 11.6 meters. So, and within that, there's 11.8 grams per ton and a 19 gram per ton with visible gold. So again, you got the wide stuff, or you got the high grade, narrower stuff. And then we've got, other intrusions that we haven't drilled yet this year, but they've got good numbers from prior drilling. Planet Cyanite, you got 3.3 grams over almost 11.5 meters. And then 0.6 grams, again, one of these wide intersections, 148 meters. It's good widths, you'd think an open pit, obviously. Now, we did, the red ones are our new drill results from this year. So we've actually got one of those flat veins above the number one vein. We got, some good numbers on that too. 12 grams over 0.9 meters, 13 over 1.5. So these are, if you're just going to mine these discretely instead of one big open pit, you could mine them wet from underground, with grades like that. So this is a plan view showing some of these new holes that we've drilled. So the number one vein is this in sort of a gold color here, and the intrusions it's actually this. We've with the new drilling, this is a reinterpretation, is this sort of brown color here. So we've got some nice intersections on the number one vein itself. And here's that 18 grams over 3.9 meters. And like I say, this continues. You see this hatched areas. Those are the highest grade parts of it. So there's a nice plunge coming through this way. So we want to follow up on that. And it's sort of following this zone here. Now, what was nice from the drilling was that, initially we were looking for substantiation of the resource, the historic resource, but we also wanted to prove that, there's some vertical structures here that are mineralized. And so in black here's this new zone that we've discovered. It's a vertical structure. It's got 10.5 meters over 2.3 grams. And then another intersection, 11.6 over 2 grams. And those follow up on that one that, I think the next slide shows it. Well, this is a close-up of that. I'm looking for the third hole. I guess it's on this slide, yeah. So here it is. If you're looking from the side, surface is up here. The purple is the intrusion. There's the flat vein, the number one vein. And here's these new intersections. And there's that old one that, I was saying before. We thought it was part of a flat vein, 14 grams over 3 meters. But now we've interpreted, and it looks like it's a vertical vein. So when we set out this year, we had two goals. One is to drill this number one vein and start to substantiate the resource in that. And the second is to try to drill some vertical structures, because most of the drilling to date has been vertical. And if you're aiming for a vertical structure, I'll go back to this slide at the start, and it'll show you these structures again. These are vertical structures. They are likely mineralized. The problem is most of the drilling is vertical or subvertical. And for instance, this one, the main structure, the Catherine Fault, doesn't have a single drill hole going through it. That's the main conduit for the fluids for the whole system. And we don't have one hole that's gone through it. So, we said, okay, let's try drilling some angled holes so we hit some of these things. And so far, all we've drilled is this small area down here. We haven't drilled up here. We haven't drilled here. We had to stop for COVID. So we've started, we're going to start the drills up again mid-June this month. So in another week or so, it's our target date. And we're going to start drilling this target next. Because, there was a historic resource. There's some really good numbers there. I think I've got a close-up slide. Yeah, this is it here. This is a close-up slide of that. So this is where we're going to next. And you can see the numbers. These are good numbers from drilling. 12 meters at 6.3 grams, 11 meters at 3 grams. This is that 0.6 over 147 grams. This whole thing was running. And mainly all the drilling's just up in this corner. Here's the main structure right here. The casing went down through the structure, and then we got the hole. So we don't have a hole through this. And there's another structure coming this way, perpendicular, that again hasn't been drilled. So we think this whole intrusion and this whole area is ripe for, you know, big tonnages here. You can see some of these are showings that again haven't been drilled. 4 grams, 43 grams, 35 grams. They're all scattered through the whole area here. So there's a lot of potential here. So, you know, this is our next foray when it comes to drilling, and then you know, we'll have phase 2 to follow up on when we finish this phase 1 drilling. And you know, with phase 2, you know, we might go, for instance, I'll go back to that original slide. We might in phase 2 drill this other intrusion here. But for instance, between these two, there's no drill holes, not a single one. There's no drill holes in this Gabbro. There's no drill holes on the Catherine Fault. All of these are really beautiful targets. And same thing here between the Allied and the Planet Cyanite. Cisco didn't drill them. They just drilled the intrusions. And these intrusions, we don't know if they hook up. They could hook. It could be one, you know, all the way along here. So it needs this property needs a lot more drilling. So anyway, we're going to finish off with phase 1, and then we're going to go to phase 2, and you know, we'll pick and choose where we're going to drill based on the results of phase 1. And you know, like I say, I would expect that we're going to have a mix here of high-grade intersections that are going to, you know, bolster these historic resources. And the second thing is these really long intersections of low grade looking for open pit, you know, because even these holes that are here, like this one here, 147 meters, that's shallow, you know, there's not, most of the drilling is all shallow on the property. And the nice thing is, I'll just show you one more thing. I'll go back to the 3D here, just to show you this. If you look at where the zone is here, this is just the #1 vein. There are other veins here that need to be followed up. This is one of our holes from this year, and we've got high grade sitting right up here that lines up with high grade here and a vein here. So we've got other veins, and all our holes, you can see they all stop after this vein. Well, what's down here? I mean, we already know that we've got veining down here. I'll just turn off this intrusion so we can see right there. You know, here's that vertical vein that we've discovered, subvertical, nice and steep. So we have these flat guys, but there could be more of these. I would expect more of these vertical veins through here. But I also would expect some veins extending out this way. So you can kind of see, here's one down here. It's 60 grams. You know, you've got another one, there's 90 something grams down in this area. So you've got these veins out down over here. 19.9 grams here, but it's a wide intersection, 4 meters. So you've got outside of the main vein here, there are other veins here to follow up. And like I say, this has just been shallowly drilled. So you can picture an open pit here quite easily. You're talking a kilometer overall, you know, by a kilometer kind of thing. Those are the kind of dimensions we're targeting. So it's going to be fun times when we get back to drilling.